And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the final round of the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it's on Friday for tonight's championship edition of the Speed Incorporated 300. 5 drivers have their opportunity to compete for a championship tonight, and the rules are pretty simple. Whoever finishes the first of our 5 championship contenders will have the right to call themselves a champion tonight. Good evening, everyone. I'm Blake Mcconville, joined alongside by Justin Prince in the booth and Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer. But Justin, it's been a crazy season with all the racing we've had, and I think none more than perhaps what we have to look forward to tonight with this new package and 5 drivers who are all vying for a chance to call themselves a champion after tonight.
Track position is going to be very critical for tonight, but as well, the speeds are going to be critical for tonight across this entire field. This is going to be an insane race to see how drivers fare when it comes to adapting to this package, and as well, how some drivers may try and tandem draft tonight, Blake. That was a major talking point for some of the drivers and throughout practice and before the start of qualifying, so we'll have to see how things fare. But 5 drivers, as talked about, we were looking for the chance to become a champion here this season. It's going to be interesting how things fare out.
It is, and the 5 drivers that we have to look forward to tonight. Tristan Hagenstein, who's been the overall points leader pretty much since the onset of this series. Mike Mcconville, Adam Martin, Sean Butler, and Cosmin Yanescu, the 5 drivers who have their chance to try and win this race tonight and take home that title. We're going through single car qualifying right now as you look on board. The Gatorade Chevrolet starting to make his way down the back straightaway a couple of times, starting to trickle in here. That is Adam Martin that is making his way through turns 3 and 4. And perhaps, Justin, what's going to be exciting tonight, and we'll even get a nice little preview of it in some of our heat races here to start. The debut really a couple of weeks ago of this brand new aero package that iRacing has introduced to try and replicate exactly how these cars behave in a pack in real life. There's a lot of mixed opinions about it, but I know for one, as somebody who's driven these a lot, it makes it a lot of fun, and there's a lot of chess matching that goes on when you're driving these race cars.
Similar to that in real life, where you have to think about, okay, can we work together as a group? Can we break the aero bubble? Can we end up using the side draft to pull the rest of the drivers around you back to utilize the speed that way? It's not just the matter of hold down the pedal and hope for the best. It's the matter of you have to be smart with your moves. You have to be very technical with your decision making as a result here, Blake. And we'll have to see which drivers are the best at the decision making throughout the night, because it can be complicated, and there's a reason drivers talk about in real life, and many broadcasters in real life talk about how super speedway racing is a very dedicated type of discipline to try and win at. And for some of the drivers on the iRacing platform, they're experiencing that difficulty and that need for that skill set for the past couple weeks.
And that has certainly been the case. You talk to a couple of different racers about their reaction or their response to exactly how everything drives, and you'll get a mixed opinion from just about anybody that you ask. A lot of the racing depends on the group that you're with, how much they're willing to go with you, how much they can make moves, how well a line works together. Can they side draft an entirely different line to try and move themselves forward? These are all the questions that these drivers have to ask themselves every time that they're looking to try and make a move, step out of line, and make something work, make up some track position. So, and this is the first race of this season that utilizes this package, so no better time to have our championship decided by something that is both difficult for the drivers and yet fun for us as spectators to watch, as we see the last couple of drivers make their way across the start-finish line. Qualifying, single car qualifying will complete, and it looks like our top row has been decided all season long. Our top 2 will advance past our heats for tonight, or just the lone heat that will run, and it looks like John Poole and Seth Noel will take the top 2 qualifying spots and single car qualifying, but we have a 10-lap heat for you ready to go before we get everything started tonight, and this is how they'll line up. Mike Fallon and Brandon Hawken will make up the front row. Tristan Hagenstein and Michael Frisch in row number 2. Justin Melillo will roll off in 5th. 6th will go to Ryan Naraki. 7th is Cosmin Yaneshu, one of our championship contenders. 8th to Kyle Riley. 9th is Sean Butler, another title contender tonight, and Jack Painter will round out the top 10.
Mike Mcconville will start at 11th alongside Clint Roberts in the Kentucky machine with Lucas Bledsoe in 13th. Adam Martin will start at 14th with Ethan Corder in 15th. Warren Rosario in 16th position with Jeremy Clapper in 17th. Kyle Short will start 18th. And Ryan Shotgun on the field will be Isaac Johnson. Andrew Hardcastle will round out the 20 drivers in this heat.
And typically throughout this season, we move forward to our heat races. We have not had anybody get dropped out of the heats. This is just a formality, and it will affect the starting position for our feature tonight. And for most events that we've had this season, well, it doesn't much matter where you qualify. We get to the end of these races, it's easy to move forward, it's easy to move back. So much can change in this series with the different car and track combinations that we've had. So we kind of just gloss over this heat as an opportunity to see what kind of moves we may see later on in the night. But Justin, track position has proven to be very important in this package. So I'd have to imagine that with all 5 of our championship contenders in this heat, there's a little more on the line that we'll see in the next 10 laps.
I absolutely agree with you. This is going to make it very intriguing as one driver elects to do burnouts, it appears, off the start. Ryan Naraki here with a massive bit of tire spin. But to get back to your point, absolutely, we may see drivers make some bold moves as a result here to try and get that valuable track position for the main if they're fighting for the championship, because you don't want to be stuck in the back with this package where you have to find several drivers willing to come up through the front. So, in other words, you may see some very bold moves that they may not make in the main race for tonight to make sure they have that positioning all well and good for later on.
It's their opportunity to do that, protect their track position, but as well, an opportunity to perhaps make some friends out there. I know one thing that has been very important as drivers have gotten caught up to speed on everything that's required to run in this package is the fact that you cannot make moves on your own. It is nearly impossible to just go up, side draft, go to your own line, and make things work. You need cars behind you. You need a lot of energy, a lot of momentum. You have to generate that with a lot of cars around you. So perhaps finding somebody that is willing to tango with you could make a difference for our championship contenders tonight if they're able to find somebody that is willing to work with them and help them go forward to the front of the field. So 10 laps set to go here in heat number 1, our only heat of the night. There will be no caution flags thrown in this heat. So if we wreck them up, we'll just keep it going until the end. And again, this heat to decide the 3rd through 22nd starting position for our main feature tonight. Again, John Poole III and Sneth Noel earned their way out of this feature. They'll start on the front row when we get to that. But pace car will pull off to pit road, and Mike Fallon right now at about noon Eastern in sim time. Mike Fallon, Brandon Hawken, your top 2 as they'll work into a very large restart zone that stretches nearly the length of the tri-oval here at Talladega Superspeedway. 2.66 miles, 4 turns on the start-finish line all the way over here by turn 1. Fallon will hit the gas, and we are green flag racing here at Dega.
Nice clean start. It looks like up to the gears for the front of the field. The back half of the field, not so much, already spread apart by at least 5 car lengths apiece. But we'll have to see how quickly drivers try and get single file, or if we see that second line coming to play with the side draft. Already some hard bits of bump drafting off the corners.
And hard bits of bump drafting. How about Michael Frisch and Brandon Hawken? We have seen the 2-car tandem can be pretty effective, but how long you can push, that's the key. As you see Frisch and Brandon Hawken there push each other out. They'll take the top 2 spots. They're still side by side behind them as Naraki leading that second line. Fallon able to break free of third, and you can already see the big differences there. That line trying to move down, squeeze that bottom line there as now Fallon tries to get them worked up on the top side.
Oh, and Hagenstein among the drivers going to have to shuffle a bit because Naraki thinking about trying to take it 3 wide. There is a bit of a gap being left in between those lanes, and it looks like Naraki just wants to take advantage of those opportunities to try and shuffle some drivers. And oh, don't forget, Sean Butler's known for trying to charge up to the front and quickly. He's trying to do that and cut off the nose of Hagenstein.
He's trying to get back down to the bottom. They all are, as now Michael Frisch will step out of line. Here comes Melillo to the outside, trying to get by him. They'll go 3 abreast as they work through 3 and 4 for the race lead. Frisch had pushed Brandon Hawken out to the lead, and now he's in the sucker hole. Justin Melillo, no help with him. Now Michael Frisch getting hung out to dry. Kyle Riley will make it 3 wide, nearly 4 here in the tri-oval as Melillo comes down. Frisch dropping like a rock, and it is still Brandon Hawken out front as again they race 4 wide into 1.
This game very hectic as here comes Butler on the bottom side as well. And some of these drivers not finding too many friends around them at this moment, I'm noticing right now, which can make things difficult. There is a few starting to build up now in that second line again, though. But the thing is, they're having a hard time keeping the car straight, trying to line things up with Kyle Riley as he goes to the bottom.
And that is what we have seen. You can hook up with somebody, but just like in real life, you put all the air on the back of the somebody's spoiler that you're pushing forward. It's going to get that car a little bit out of shape. As you can see, Frisch trying to do all he can to stall out the momentum of that bottom lane. Side drafting, trying to stall them out, and it is not working as he and a couple others there in that second lane get hung out to dry. You look on board Sean Butler of a top 6 or 7 or so that have all worked single file. You see Cosme and Eschu, another championship contender. They've all settled in on the bottom, and this is one thing we have seen with how difficult it is to make moves as you see the 84 get to the outside of the 58. With how difficult it is to generate these moves. This is a little bit of what you saw in even in the eNASCAR Pro Invitational Series the other night, a little bit of single file right now on the bottom at Talladega, something that, you know, if it were real life, maybe we would see them around that outside line.
Yeah, it makes things very interesting as well with, of course, the bottom being the shortest distance around, but a big run by third on back after the two-car tango up at the front, pulled away by 0.8 of a second, Blake. The tough thing's going to be, though, again, keeping that momentum up. It's to where all these drivers are slowing each other down a little bit. Keep in mind, though, the cars on the bottom are only running about 184 as a result of the side draft, 185 of the side-by-side. Hawken kept the speed up in the corner up to 189 throughout the bottom of the racetrack.
Well, what worked against Hawken is he had nobody behind him, and you can see now the place to be is that outside line. As here comes Kyle Riley up to the lead. He's got a little bit of help there in the third line from a couple of goers and Tristan Hagenstein and Sean Butler. So now the high side where everybody's starting to form up and make a little bit of speed is Butler still in tow with Hagenstein and Riley. And, of course, we'll work across the stripe. We'll be halfway in heat number 1. But as you can see, the bottom was preferred. Now everybody's starting to venture up to the top.
And as expected, some of those drivers competing for the championship have already migrated their way up to the very front of the field. Some of them in very aggressive moves like Sean Butler, some of them being very defensive like Tristan Hagenstein. It's going to be tough sledding for Mike Mcconville and company, though, to try and get themselves back up there, and that's why I think they're trying to utilize that bottom. The thing is, it can be difficult even to ride the top here because you end up having any moment where the car bottoms out or you have your steering cut out or anything like that. It can cause massive calamity as now they shuffle back to the bottom for defense.
And Riley with the big move. Now Butler through to the middle side. Riley hung out to dry, and now Butler has no help there in the middle. And we talk about that air bubble, that push you need from behind. Butler needs to find somebody who's willing to work with him behind to keep him up there at the front. He's going to find it in the form of the 24 machine, another championship contender in Mike Mcconville, who's going to work with Butler. And you see the job that Butler's doing. Now he'll work down to the 89, create a little bit of side draft, try to get Melillo stalled out there, that last car on the inside line, or at least that front four, and you see how much that affects. Melillo is now, Butler's all over the place, getting a two-car tandem there from Mike Mcconville, and you can see right there, when you tandem, that car in front, you are just hanging on for dear life.
You have to do it very precisely to be able to get it done properly, and the tough thing when it comes to the Chevy Nose, too, is it has that fairly pointed, very much end of that front bumper. That can end up be basically hard to center it up. Some drivers have talked about how they prefer to utilize a Ford, for example, for some of the super speedway races when they go for official racing, for example. So that's also coming into play, I think, as well as that difficulty to line up those bumpers solidly without causing the cars to get unstable throughout the corners, and that's going to be something Mcconville has to be aware of to center it up perfectly if he wants to push Butler, for example, now with his top.
Well, they work single file for these top four. You mentioned Butler stepping out of line. He's got Mike Mcconville trying to work with him once again. And you just see how cars get side by side. It was something in iRacing that if you could go side by side as a pack and it would actually speed you up. That is not the case anymore. Any type of maneuvering when you're side by side with somebody because of the side draft is going to slow you down. You see Butler trying to do all he can with Mcconville to try and move forward. But now Mcconville going to leave him out to dry. Here comes Melillo now leading the charge in that second line as Brandon Hawken now moving up. He'll try to side draft the 53. Meanwhile, this is exactly what that top three want to see as they continue to try to pull away. And big crash here on the back straightaway. Butler's involved. Hawken is around.
And Mike Mcconville involved in the wrecking again. Melillo is all over the place. 3 wide as several drivers are fending over the apron in the turn.
They're continuing that crash almost essentially up here. The top two have broken away. They somehow didn't wreck it with Michael Frisch, Justin Melillo. Some big moves being made here at the front, though. Jack Painter looked to the outside of Hagenstein. Naraki blocked that as now they work single file, and we've really had about just a two-car breakaway at the front of the field. Cosmin Ionescu and Lucas Plosel, the top two, but Justin, I think they're in a bad spot here as we reach the white flag. That entire pack behind them, they are going to generate so much energy as they try to catch them down the backstretch.
Already a 4 or 5 mile an hour difference in speeds here, but this is what they may want to see a little bit, is that side by side that can slow them down just a touch bit. Will Cosman be able to defend to hold on to the third starting position, though? It's going to be critical here through the final corner.
Naraki getting out of line certainly slowed the momentum of that second pack, but now we look up front. Ionescu trying to block high. He's going to throw the block on Lucas Plosel. He'll duck back down to the bottom. Plosel trying to block to the outside. Here comes the 44, side draft to the line, and he's going to get him. Lucas Plosel able to win heat number 1 in a move that I think a lot of drivers are going to put in their memory banks. He gets to the outside of Cosmin Ionescu. He side drafts him perfectly and wins at the stripe by 13 1/1000ths of a second.
And it looks like they are still crashing after the checker flag, and as well coming to the line. A couple drivers like Jeremy Clapper going to lose several positions, but well executed on the side draft indeed for Lucas Plosel to be able to pull back Cosman in the final corner, wait for the right moment at the right time to make the move, and was able to execute that to get the checker flag for this respective heat to be able to get third starting position for the main race tonight.
And that's exactly right. A couple of your championship contenders faring awfully well in the final results of that heat. As we want to welcome in everybody that was watching. Malik Ray, we appreciate the raid from Campaign Ray there. And, of course, everything that Malik Ray brings here to Super Speedway Racing. A lot to look forward to here as we complete heat number 1 and move forward to the main feature. 5 drivers in contention for the championship here tonight. And they'll all battle, and this is how the grid will look as they try to get themselves a championship tonight. Seth Noel and John Poole, again, they qualified through single car qualifying here to start on row number 1. Lucas Plosel will start in the 3rd position, win with championship contender Cosmin Ionescu, the front driver who has a chance at that title tonight. Tristan Hagenstein will roll off to the inside of row number 3. Jack Painter in 6th, Mike Fallon in 7th, Justin Melillo 8th, Ryan Naraki in 9th, and Adam Martin the top 10, although we will have a bit of a warm-up period, just about 2 minutes long for everybody to get themselves sorted out, get their last-minute strategy up and ready to go here, Justin. And you know, I think we learned a lot in that first heat.
We definitely learned that the tandem draft is going to be very strong for this race tonight for drivers utilizing that. We also learned that drivers are going to be willing potentially to be fairly aggressive when it comes to the closing stages of this main race tonight. 70 laps the distance, where drivers are going to try and get that second line, in fact the third, if not a fourth line, as seen several times, to work to try and gain some track position. The tough part's going to be, though, Blake, getting enough cars to be able to utilize that second line or even the third line to be able to get up to the leaders, because that side drafting is something you need to do precisely, as we talked about, Blake. And it's also something where, as a driver, you need to know where exactly to pull back the other car. So that's something I think the drivers are going to have to definitely pick up on when we take the green flag here in a couple moments or so for the main race tonight.
Absolutely, Justin. And, you know, the one thing that I love about this package is that with an entirely different group of drivers, you never know what you're going to get out of this race. For a large part of the official racing that we've seen in this package, you're generally seeing a lot of cars forming up on the bottom, getting single file, and that's mostly how it's gone. But in that heat, we saw everything. We saw single file on the bottom. We saw the third line eventually work and become the strong point there for a couple of laps, and you saw everybody working around and trying to learn about this side draft. And that's what I love about this package, is that each group of drivers that you come out onto the racetrack with, you're gonna see a different result. Some packs will be entirely side by side drafting each other for all they're worth, and then sometimes you'll see a couple people get in line, work together, be a little more patient. It's just I think it's one of the wonderful things about what they've created here to try and replicate the racing we see in real life. As we will bring you the starting grid for the final round of the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it's on Friday. Seth Noel, John Poole, as mentioned earlier, through their qualifying times of 51.996 for Mr. Noel, will net him the pole position. John Poole to his outside. Lucas Plosa will start in third. Cosmin Ionescu, first championship contender on the grid. He'll roll off from the fourth starting position. Tristan Hagenstein, another championship contender, in fifth. Jack Painter in sixth. Seventh is Mike Fallon. Justin Malillo will start in the eighth position. Ryan Naraki will start in ninth, and to his outside, Adam Martin will complete the top 10.
11th spot goes to Michael Frisch. Keep an eye on him. He's known for being powerful later on in these types of races, with Andrew Hardcastle in 12th. Mike Mcconville will start in 13th, with Brandon Hawkin in 14th. Kyle Riley and Jeremy Clapper will start in 15th and 16th. Clint Roberts in 17th. The deepest of the drivers fighting for a championship will be Sean Butler in 18th position. Born Rosario scheduled to start 19th. Kyle Short in 20th. Of note, Ethan Corder, Isaac Johnson did not make the start in the qualifying heat. They've also not made it to the start for this main race tonight.
They have not, but we will look forward as 3 Fords, 2 Chevrolets look to do battle for the championship tonight. You can take a look at our race weather right there. It has warmed up pretty significantly since the heat that we saw, so a little bit slicker out there on the racetrack. 83 degrees, 110 track temperature, and you notice that wind. I feel like a lot of drivers have felt a little more stable with the two-car tandem. We talked about that front car in line. You get really out of shape when you have somebody all over your back bumper, but with that wind, we've heard a little bit of drivers talking in practice. They think that's added just a little bit of stability to when and how effective that two-car tandem can be. And as they roll off the banking here for the final time to get us started here on this series, the iRacing.com pace car will pull to the safety of pit road. Seth Noel, John Poole, your top two, and we are ready to crown a champion tonight, as Noel now has control of the field for virtually the entire tri-oval. He can go whenever he so desires and get us going underway. It's one of the more interesting things, I think, Justin, about restarting here at Talladega. You have so much free room to make it happen, and it looks like Noel may just wait until Barney the flagman gets started, and that is how he will do it. Green flag is in the air for 70 laps tonight to crown a champion at Talladega.
And an interesting start for Seth Noel, in fact, trying to go and utilize 2 different lanes there off the jump. And quickly, everybody, as expected, trying to get to the bottom of the racetrack already, Blake. Just about everybody in the front part of the field quickly got to that yellow line and then some.
You have to remember this is a 70-lap race, so there is quite a long ways to go. So I wouldn't be too shocked if we saw a little bit of a tamer start to this race. There is one fast repair in the back pocket for every driver that is out here tonight. So, of course, they have that as well if they want to utilize that. But you can see very quickly the entire pack getting single file, except for the Speed Incorporated teammates, Justin Malillo, Ryan Naraki, trying to make some ground on the outside. But as we've seen throughout this week, Justin, two cars, you can try that tandem to keep up, but it is going to be very difficult to try and move forward on that outside line. But just as quickly as we say that, a couple more cars will venture to the top of the racetrack. Lucas Posa will go to the back of the field as he goes high 3 wide. But Tristan Hagenstein, championship contender, he has a couple of cars willing to help him in that second line to try to move forward.
Of course, Tristan Hagenstein, the overall points leader before this reset for the championship race, has been very consistent, has found his way to victory lane a couple times rather, I believe, throughout the season. It's been a competitive season for him. You can say the same for Mike Mcconville with that photo finish to get himself to victory lane in the last race. So both of these drivers, very competitive, very quick throughout this season with how they've fared so far. They've been consistently inside the top 5 at just about all the races so far this campaign. Shouldn't be surprised to see them already trying to get track positions. A big block set for the high line.
Big block for the high line as one car starting to fall back there on the top of that third lane. That is Jack Painter, who will fall to the back of this field. But Seth Noel did something really interesting there as the race leader. He pulled out of line and allowed the pack to catch up to him, as now he gets a little bit of a charge here. And to the high side, John Poole going to peek to the outside of the leader. Perfect side draft there. Can he clear Seth Noel off the corner? Doesn't appear so. They'll go side by side for the race lead. Sean Butler looking to join it as well. And here comes a hard charging Tristan Hagenstein on the third line here. They are not waiting around here on lap number 3.
All of them want to try and get that valuable track position, try and get the fastest lap as well. That currently scored by Brandon Hawken, who was quickest in practice of 49.1. So they are blistering quick around this racetrack so far. Hawken, keep in mind, is back in 17th position, just waiting around and watching as all these drivers just race like it's the final 10 laps, similar to what we've seen with the heat race, in fact, so far. As Butler, of note, thinking about peeking to the outside. Adam Martin just got shuffled, though.
Adam Martin gets shuffled out to the outside. He's going to do everything he can to ease that fall back through, as you see him side drafting the 53 and the 37. Not able to do anything as one car to the inside of the apron. That is Mike Fallon, who in another car making it. That is the 55 of Mike Fallon, making a trip down pit road as they scattered there back in the field. We stay under green. Perhaps Mike Mcconville fell victim to that as well. He's got a little bit of damage, and he is going to lose the draft. One of our championship contenders limping along here in turn 1. He has lost the draft, and so has Mike Fallon.
It indeed was Mike Mcconville involved in that incident, trying to get to the outside of Jack Painter and slammed to the outside wall. Fallon ended up avoiding by going down the pit lane. Unfortunate for those drivers. They're going to need a caution flag to get back in contention, to say the very least right now. They've already lost more than 5 seconds to the rest of the pack.
Now what this has allowed, it's about an 8-car breakaway here at the front of the field. You see Seth Noel still leading this line of cars. Butler in second, and in third in tow in the Wildcat Chevrolet is Clint Roberts. They sorted out. They've gotten single file, and Justin, I think if they can stay single file, they can keep that other pack at bay. But Justin Malillo wants to make up some ground here from the 4th spot. He'll poke to the outside, try to get that side draft, but just not able to do it. And here comes Mike Mcconville down pit road. He's going to go ahead and take that fast repair under green, try to lessen the damage and get back in line with this pack.
Yeah, this is going to lose him a ton of time either way, but look at this for the race lead. Butler has some friends with Justin Malillo to the outside.
And Malillo moves down into Seth Noel. They scatter as they make contact, and now Malillo gets turned in front of the pack. Kyle Riley, heavy damage. Michael Frisch gets in it as well. Clint Roberts spun to the inside, and Roberts may have come back up on the racetrack, misses a couple of cars, but Lap number 6, Justin. We've seen some races where they're patient. We've seen some races where they're not. This is an example of the latter. And on lap number 7, caution is out for the first time tonight.
Gonna make an easy one-stopper on the gas as a result here, but it was an interesting sequence to say the very least. Malo made what is a mistake that many drivers end up making at one point, is you're so focused on the car in front that you forget that you may be side by side while trying to follow the line. And that's what in turn helped get him so squirrely, and in turn collected so many cars. Frisch losing his front clip as well. Kyle Riley already blowing the motor. Those drivers likely going to have to use a fast repair as a result here of that contact. But man, oh man, big incident for the lead pack, as several of your contenders are going to lose some time as a result of this.
They are, and a couple of drivers going to go ahead and have to use that fast repair. Kyle Riley, you see the damage on his machine. He has smoke billowing out of his Ford Mustang, so he's going to have to come down pit road and take waste of that fast repair just 7 laps into this race. Justin Malillo going to have to do so as well. Michael Frisch. And, you know, Justin, I think because this isn't the super speedway racing of old that we're accustomed to seeing, everybody going to make the trip down pit road here, as you mentioned, to try to make sure they're good to go on just one stop to the end on fuel, is that in the past, being the leader didn't come with a lot of advantages, but you see track position matter as the leader. That air bubble behind you just gives you such a push. I think that's why you see a lot of drivers really try to clamor to that track position, because of how effective it can now be.
It can be extremely valuable as a result to be able to be the leader, to be in clean air, and to be able to log lead laps. The tough part is, though, in the field, drivers have been reporting throughout the week where if you lead every single lap, Blake, for an entire pack, say in the A Open side of things, that's 70 laps for comparison's sake, you can only make it 34 laps. So that's the tough part, is trying to make sure you get enough gas and be able to save enough to be able to then in turn make it to 35 to 36 for a green flag run. So that has to be a thought process for some of the drivers. Not so much now, but it is going to be for at least one. Jeremy Clapper, as we've seen, did elect to stay out for the track position, meaning he's banking on an air caution flag to equalize everybody out by the time that they're good to go on fuel possibly here, because you do not want to pit on your own here in this race.
Well, I think we've seen a couple of times in this season, we've seen some drivers. Of course, this is older Cup Series points, and NASCAR Nextel era points, we'll call it. So you do get points for leading laps in this series, and I think we've seen even Clapper a few times under caution stay out, lead the one lap, collect a couple of bonus points, and then he'll come down pit road. I don't imagine that we would see the driver of the 94 stay out in any way, just because you have to come down pit road once, but you have to do it so much earlier than everybody else that if you stay out under a green flag cycle, you're eventually just going to lose the pack when you have to pit by yourself and not make any headway up. But also of note there on that last run, how about the stroke of luck there for the driver of the 24, Mike Mcconville, who came down pit road under green to take his fast repair, didn't go a lap down, and because of the caution, he was ahead of the race leader, so he doesn't even lose a lap out of that. He doesn't have the fast repair anymore, but pretty fortunate timing of the caution for Mcconville, who did not eventually go a lap down after coming onto pit road to take that fast repair.
Within a lap, in fact, that incident came out for him to be able to keep the lap, so that is absolutely huge. Of note, Justin Malillo elected to not use the fast repair, but he's going to struggle to keep up with the rest of the pack now with that front nose gone. I think he's banking on some more trouble later on and then try and charge later on. But of note, since this is a quick yellow racetrack, you cannot pit the second time around, as the pit lane will be closed for you, and it is a green flag penalty if you pit with the lane closed, coming to the 2 to go signal. So Clapper forced to stay out here in this situation. It's going to be interesting how this plays out now for the 94. Of note as well, but the top 7 drivers off the pit lane took 2 tires with the amount of time it took for the gas. Everybody else took 4.
Well, and I'll just go ahead and say this: from any tires that I've seen in any race this week, they virtually don't matter. You're not going to have anybody, especially under green flag. You're either going to see them not take tires at all, or if they're filling up on all 18 gallons of Sunoco fuel that they can put in their race cars, you're going to be taking 2 tires for the most part. So with this setup, and I believe, yes, we're using the iRacing fixed setup, tire wear pretty much non-existent here at Talladega. It's not going to slow you down more so than being in the pack and getting runs will. So have to imagine that if you'll take 2, you'll more than likely take it on the right sides, but that's just how things typically work here at Talladega Super Speedway. So Jeremy Clapper on a different cycle than everybody else. It will be very interesting to see how this plays out. If we get a long green flag run, Clapper is going to be in big trouble, but we'll see how that plays out as lights are off on the pace car. Will work off of the banking here in turn 4 as we come to lap just number 10 of 70 to decide a champion tonight. One driver looking to do that is Sean Butler, as he is all the way against the wall here. Very large separation between these 2 lines as we work our way into the restart zone. Jeremy Clapper in control of the field in his Anaheim Ducks Chevrolet Camaro. And now we wait a long time as Clapper has any opportunity to go that he wants, and a nice jump there for both Clapper and Butler, but Butler going to be hurt by the fact that he doesn't have a car within 3 car lengths behind him. Green flag is out, and now Butler may look to be in a good spot. Clapper has no help on the bottom. Naraki goes up with Butler, and they may try to make that high side work here early on.
Yeah, it looks like just about everybody wants to try and pass by Clapper. Just wanting to utilize the teamwork at this point. Naraki hooked up with Butler to give him the race lead and a chance to get some valuable points. As they nearly make contact with the outside wall, they push so hard.
Well, and Butler and a whole line of cars already starting to make that high line work. Butler not cutting to the inside, so perhaps we're going to try to see that train start to form on the high side, and everybody is joining in as you see the middle line there with Mike Mcconville, Mike Fallon, all start to get in line. Jeremy Clapper, who led coming to the stripe, is going to be all the way back in about the 11th position when we cycle things out. He's scored in P10. But there you see it, Butler leading a line of cars that, rather than the bottom side, they're starting to form up at the top.
And this looks a bit more like the real world, does it, in play, where it can utilize, where drivers elect to run this line because it can utilize the side drive for the wall, rather, the side forces with the wall, and be able to just, in turn, be able to defend cars to the right side since they can't cut to the right side. You need to have friends, though, to cut to the bottom side if you want to utilize that line. And we've seen some drivers not willing to play with that bottom line. Some of these drivers not willing to play with one another have already lost a bit of the draft.
And that's the case, and that's what can happen when you have them battling like this. This line up here at the front, 9 cars strong. If they're smart and they can get in line here, or rather 8 cars, they could pull away from the pack behind them by just working together and staying in line. You see that pack in the back there, they are too wide. That's slowing them down, so they have to try and sort things out here if they want to catch them.
Yeah, they've already lost almost 2 seconds, in fact, to this point. That's got to be absolutely frustrating for those drivers at this point. And it doesn't help that the car that's leading the second pack has significant damage now. John Poole, back-end damage, is going to slow down the maximum speed he can carry. And this, in turn, is going to hurt a couple of the championship contenders like Cosman, who is stuck in this back grouping, and some of the favorites for this race. And it can be difficult to reel back in the rest of the group if you don't work together well enough, and we're seeing those drivers not working together at all. Lost about 9/10 last time.
No, and they're in a really bad spot right now. Remember, there were plenty of drivers our last trip down pit road under that caution who elected not to take that fast repair. They think that they're going to be slowed up by a caution flag at some point. Cosmin Ionescu is one of those. He has a little bit of front-end damage on his Ford Mustang. You see a little bit of damage for John Poole as well. Jack Painter has damage. You see Seth Noel has a little bit of right front damage. Clint Roberts has some damage. So pretty much everybody in this second pack, they're not running at full song. So even if they do get organized, I don't know if they can catch everybody up here at the front who was just doing a better job of pushing each other. They're still side by side, and we'll see the time difference between the two packs this trip around. It looks like Cosmin Ionescu, he led that line. He ran a 51-1 up here at the front. They were in the 49s or low 50s, so they're losing this pack, and now they're going too wide at the front. Tristan Hagenstein looking to try and take the race lead away from Sean Butler on the inside.
That's going to help out that air pack a little bit if they can take advantage of this, but what a block by Butler as he tries to control the bubble all sorts of sideways there trying to save it.
What an incredible job there from Sean Butler, who goes to the bottom to protect it. We have seen that high line form, but of course you have to be cognizant that if everybody goes to the bottom, you have to block that as well. And right now, Butler just chasing Hagenstein in his mirror. Big block there. It keeps the 27 at bay, and that is exactly what you want if you're Sean Butler. You want to have the lead. You don't want to get out too far, but you want to have that air bubble just behind you so that it pushes you forward and you can continue to defend there from the lead. And Butler chasing Hagenstein all over the racetrack. I'm sure Sean Butler right now, if he's anything like me, he's not even looking out his windshield right now. He is just looking at his mirror and trying to block wherever the 27's going.
And keep in mind, points are still going to be a potential factor for tonight for the fastest lap in lead laps. And this is in part why I think Butler is defending so aggressively here, where he does not want to give Hagenstein the chance to get a bonus point for leading the lap. He wants the chance to get the most laps led at this point here, Blake. The problem is he's got no help here.
No help indeed as Butler gets passed by Tristan Hagenstein and Mike Fallon. He'll slot there in third, but it looks like Tristan Hagenstein now has control of the lead. And of course, our championship contenders, they want to lead as many laps as possible. They want to get the points that are all on the table, and leading the most laps is one of them. Butler nearly scrapes the fences. Naraki shoves him, and now here comes Butler to the inside of Mike Fallon. He gets them separated. Slow car in the way is Justin Malillo. Is Hagenstein going to try to use the 53 as a pick? Butler tries to move up. They nearly make contact off of 4.
And it appears Malillo has indeed elected to use the faster pair after initially not using it the first time. And that cost him a ton, to say the very least, to have to utilize that under green after realizing the mistake. But I think Butler needs to find a way to get back on this top line, because they were gaining a ton of time this pack on the rest of the field before they started shuffling about. Now that our pack, since they're all working together at the bottom of the racetrack, has reeled in about a second back from what they were before.
You're exactly right. While all this is going on at the front of the field, that second pack slowly but surely starting to reel them back in. And I think that's what I love about this, is that how you work together makes a big difference in the speed that you generate, the momentum, the energy to get that pack moving. It all depends on how nice everybody is willing to play with one another. And that second pack, they've been on the bottom the whole time. You see the lead pack has ventured up to the top side of the racetrack, but that second pack now, they can start to sniff that draft just a little bit off, as they were about a second quicker. So they are reeling these guys in fast.
Yeah, they're really working together very well, and the problem has been, again, for all those race leaders, they've been all fighting side by side, pulling each other back, side drafting one another. That's cost them all the momentum. So at this point, if they work together, I think it's going to be very difficult still for this group to catch up, especially with moves like that, where Cosmin went up to the high line, back to the bottom line, and checked everybody up by 2/10.
Almost got turned. And again, you're going to see that so much in any official racing that you saw in this package. You wanted to keep the race lead no matter what. You want to keep that car behind you, because eventually, unless they can tandem and break that air bubble, they're going to push you forward, and it makes such a big difference. And I think we can look at a great example of this right now. Look at the last car that is in line here in this front pack. It is Adam Martin. He is losing this pack, and that is because you have to have help behind you. Having somebody push you forward makes such a difference in your speed. Now they check up as a couple of drivers hit the fence. Melillo's going to back off, and now Martin's going to get in line with Lucas Postel. But back to my point, if you are the last car in line, now it's going to be Justin Melillo, and you don't have someone behind you, it is nearly impossible to make a move back. And I was talking to perhaps one of the best in the business that's ever run at these plate tracks. He's got a lot of wins here at Talladega. His name's Dale Earnhardt Jr., and he was talking about the same thing, that if you want to make moves, you need at the very least about 2 or 3 cars to try and go with you and make those moves happen. Otherwise, it's just so hard to do. And that's why very often in real life you'll see a car that is the last car in line very often lose the draft, because you're just kind of along for the ride at that point.
It's similar as well to, if you think back to the Gen 6 package from the mid-2010s as well in iRacing, where it was difficult to gain momentum if you were the last car, especially in fixed races, where before they changed things up and moved to the tapered spacer, when there was still the restrictor plate, if you were at the back of that line, you were in trouble, because it was just so hard to keep up the speed and momentum when you didn't have somebody behind you. So we're seeing that similar circumstance now with these adjustments to the aero package to try and match real life, where drivers are losing a couple miles an hour compared to the drivers in front because they don't have that energy being built up from behind them to help push them forward in that aero bubble, pushing them forward to the rest of the cars. So now we're seeing that come into play a little bit as well, by the way, with the drivers all now to the top line. But similar to like that's been seen throughout the week, Blake, if you're in the lead pack, that's the place you want to be. If you're in the second pack, even with the more cars, it can be trouble to try and gain up to the rest of the leaders unless they start to scrap.
It really comes down to how well you work together. As we see, this top line has started to form up once again, and they have started to make up ground now on everybody at the front. 49 8s, 49 9s in the front pack, and the second pack running in the 50.2 second range. So the second pack has slowed down a little bit. They were in the 49 second range just a little bit earlier, so they're not quite as well formed up as they were. And of course, I think this front group saw how well they were working together, and they said, we need to figure this out to try and keep this lead to ourselves. So they figure this out. You talk about former eras of super speedway racing. One thing that you'll even sometimes see with the cars today is a 2-car tandem, something that where 2 cars just get hooked up together and they just take off. It generates so much speed because you've broken that air bubble. You're just shoving that car in front of you. You will see that from time to time in this package, Justin, but you're not going to be able to hold it for very long because of how quickly the cars overheat, and of course the fact that when you're that car in front, you're so ill handling when you're trying to handle a car all over the back of you.
And we've seen that a couple times tonight where drivers have attempted to tandem draft in the corner even, which is something you normally don't do, and it's led to drivers being squirrely all the way to the middle of the back straight away. Even here you can see a little bit now on the bottom side, trying to tandem draft a little bit, how squirrely these drivers are just trying to hold a line together at this point. So all this is all factoring in on how these drivers are approaching this race. As battle for the race lead is back on. This is going to help the second pack a bit.
And Butler going all the way to the apron to avoid that side draft from Tristan Hagenstein. But like we've seen, you need 2 cars to make a move. He's got it in Ryan Naraki and Justin Melillo. Now, again, Melillo, he's still the last car in line, so he can try and push that 37 forward, but he's only going to be able to get so close. He doesn't have the help for himself to try and go up and push that 37. You see Hagenstein working the side draft. Butler's going to try to do it as well. As Riley is in the fence, that's going to stack them all up. Butler can go to the high side now if he elects to. And by the way, that pack just about a couple seconds back, they are starting to make up some hefty ground as now Hagenstein moves back to the bottom of the racetrack.
And this is the danger of when you shuffle around too quickly here. And this is exactly what those drivers behind need to see, is all this fighting and all these drivers pulling each other back, because they're really holding each other up in terms of speed while everyone else is just lining up for the momentum up at the very second pack of the field. They need to see this 2-3 wide. They need to see this shuffling if they want a chance to be able to get back into the scrap themselves and stay in the lead pack. The question's going to be, will they get back to a train formation back on the top line once more in this lead pack to try and gain that time back? They're already under 2 seconds.
They're under 2 seconds. It's seconds. And oh, by the way, we had a change for the race lead. Sean Butler was able to get by Tristan Hagenstein on the high side of the racetrack. So move the 32 Pennzoil forward up front. And he'll try to lead some laps and, of course, beat Tristan Hagenstein there to try to get his shot at the championship. But behind them, Ryan Naraki. Side draft to Mike Fallon. He'll move up to the 3rd position. Does he move up alongside Hagenstein to side draft him? He will do so. Naraki pulls the 27 back. And, you know, Justin, this is one of the things when you're the leader that is so difficult for Sean Butler. And, you know, I was spotting James Davison the other night. You can remember the eNASCAR Pro Invitational Series. I was spotting Davison, who was relatively new to this style of racing. And the one thing that I had to preach to him all the time is when you're the leader, it's great to be the leader, but you don't want to get too far out front, because if you do, you allow them, one, you're not being shoved forward by the air bubble, and two, you allow that second place driver to build up a run. As you see, Butler here gets to the outside of Hagenstein with no help behind him, but it's just one of those things. You have to manage that gap. You want to be about half a car length ahead. As now here comes the second pack. They have arrived, and they are 3 wide back here for about the 5th position.
Tristan Hagenstein's picked up on this and sees that momentum coming to be able to try and utilize it to gain a few cushion cars possibly here. Tough part's going to be getting fully clear and fully worked in, as now that momentum is just shuffled back and held up a little bit. But to get to your point, drivers will sometimes drag the brakes, for example, while trying to keep as much throttle as they can to keep the momentum up, keep the engine momentum and power going. Others may feather the throttle a little bit more, try and run 3/4 throttle or half a throttle in some cases. The further back you go, the less throttle in terms sometimes you need to be able to save gas. So all of that comes into play for how these drivers work together in a pack such as this. Like I said, it's an art form to do it properly, and for some drivers, they need to pick up on those things if they want to be able to be the quickest, to be able to say, okay, I can lead and keep ahead. For example, say you keep it full throttle at the bottom of the racetrack, you're pulling away by a car length likely with this package, or a car or 2 car lengths. Guess what happens, Blake? Everyone else builds up the momentum and they have a chance to build up a run on you. I've seen it a couple times already myself where I've made that same mistake and have lost the lead immediately because of that.
It's a tough thing to try and manage, because you think you're out here, you're in the race lead, but you always have to be watching your mirror, whether you're brake dragging or just lifting a little bit to try and move back there. It is so important. And another thing that happens here, so we saw the bottom lane come up to play. In reaction to that, all these drivers that were working the 3rd line, you see them work back to the 2nd line because they want to side draft that bottom line. If you're side by side and you have 2 lanes going and one's on the very bottom and one is on the very top, well, advantage to likely the bottom side because they're taking the shorter way around. How do you combat that if you're the high side? Well, you move into the 2nd lane. Use that side draft to keep that bottom line pinned down and use them up. As you see now, a bit of shuffling here at the front. Hagenstein with the lead, but Ian Eschew and Hawken looking like they wanted to form something up there for a moment. The 84 all squirrely as he gets out of shape. He's now into the wall, drives back into the pack, and that is going to be a yellow flag.
And a big one. It's the biggest wreck so far of the race. Caution is out, and man, oh man. Should be worth noting that I think Cosman wanted to go up to the 2nd line to get that lead lap. That's why he and Brandon Hawken went up there quickly. And it just backfired so fast with the instability that can happen with these cars, especially coming out of the corner when you're trying to hold on to a line and you get bumped in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's exactly the case. Ian Eschew was all over the place, and that was, again, a factor of that car right behind him, trying to give him that push. Hawken there in the middle line. He's trying to do all he can to help push that 84 forward. They're trying to make up ground, but the 84 just gets so loose as he jumped up there into the second lane. He gets all squirrely, gets out of shape, and a barely missed time bump. And, we were talking about it earlier. The noses on these Chevrolet Camaros, they stick out a little bit, and you can see as Hawken is just barely not center as he sees the fishtailing 84 in front of him, gets just the outside, and the nose of that Camaro is just enough to send Yanescu into the wall, who just couldn't collect it up before he came back down into Mike Fallon. And it's going to be a lot of damage for a number of competitors who had the opportunity to use that fast repair, I'm sure, if they want, but not sure if you want to use it yet if you got a little bit of damage. You see Butler there. He lost the rear end of his race car in that scrap. And, it's one of those questions. We're not even halfway. Do you dare not use that fast repair and try to risk potentially losing the draft? Or do you use that fast repair now so that you can lead? It's a tough question to ask.
Well, seeing how things are faring out here as Adam Martin and a couple other drivers elect to surprisingly stay out here, this caution flag, this is still a scenario where drivers, I think, will have to eventually still have to pit, Blake, because they're outside the fuel window by a couple laps when you're saving. So in other words, this race just got a whole lot more interesting because of this caution flag.
It certainly did. And why don't we go ahead and talk to somebody who has been interesting all night. Sean Butler now, who used that fast repair. Sean, how you doing tonight?
Doing good, Blake. Hope you guys are having a good time up there. That last run was pretty entertaining, but yeah, I really wish I kind of skirted through that. I almost did. Then they came down off the wall and tagged me a little bit. So as you mentioned, had to use up the fast repair, but hopefully that's the only trouble I see tonight. So fingers crossed.
Well, and I'll kind of ask you what your plan is here going forward. You use that fast repair, so you have the new race car, but it's the last one that you get for tonight. Are you planning to try and keep that Pinto Ford Mustang up at the front, or the fact that we're not even halfway through this race yet, that maybe you try to lay back and just try to get this thing to the end? What are you thinking?
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be, it's one of those deals where, like, it's you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I'm planning to stay up here because everyone up here, it seems that they have a decent idea of what to do. So I'll probably just try to stay up here, and because I want to be there at the end, obviously, and at least make it harder on Tristan. But we'll just see. If it starts getting a little hairy, I might back off. But if it's organized like it was for the 90% of that last run, I'll probably try to be around here and have a chance at the end.
And one more question for you, Sean. Do you think we see Talladega BR come into play more in this race?
Well, I mean, if for the people that hung around after Malik's raid, I'm hoping that they got a better idea of how this thing works. So it's definitely beneficial, as you saw, when you get a bunch of cars lined up on the top, you can pull away from the pack like we did. And it provides some great racing, too. I mean, it takes, you actually have to plan your moves to pass the guys on the top. You have to organize your runs and time everything, which makes it really fun, in my opinion. I've been very vocal about how I feel about the package here, but as everyone keeps saying, when it's done right, it's a blast. And Tristan apologized to me after that run. He's like, Sean, I know you hate me, but that was really fun. I'm like, no, dude, I don't hate you at all. That was the most fun I've had running this package by far. So hopefully we have some more clean racing like that and exciting stuff, and we make it worth a watch as we decide a champion today.
All right, Sean. Well, we'll go ahead and let you get back to it. Thanks for taking the time out.
Appreciate it, guys.
And I think, Justin, to speak to Sean's point, and we mentioned it a couple of times tonight, that this package, we've heard it described a number of ways, but I think he puts it perfectly that if you get the right people involved, you can have some amazing racing. I know personally myself, I think we were running a little bit earlier. We had Malik Ray in there. He was obviously part of that race. We had Brian Blackford, just Bob Bryant, Michael Guest, and we were out here and just having an absolute blast racing each other. And when you get these guys who really know how to utilize the side draft and what it takes to make these runs, it can just be so much fun to go out here and race these cars with this package.
It can be, absolutely, and it's been talked about even across the iRacing forums, where if you get the right people. You get those types of races, and we've seen that type of race tonight where we've seen a mixture of single file, we've seen a mixture of hard aggressive fighting, we've seen mixtures of 3-4 wide, in fact, in some cases, and we've seen mixtures of absolute insanity. So far, it's been a blast for some of these drivers, at least from our viewpoint so far, it seems. So it's going to be interesting, though, how this fares out, because it likely becomes a fuel mileage race from this point. Several drivers did elect to top off, including Mike Mcconville and Cosman in issue under the caution flag, along with Adam Martin, who did lead a lap. So it's going to be the matter of, will these drivers be able to make it on gas if we get to the checkered flag?
That's going to be the question, and initially, Justin, my thought is probably not. With all the racing we've seen tonight, how hard you're having to drive, I don't think anybody's going to be able to save the fuel necessary to make it to the end here. But we might see somebody try to stretch it, and of course, we do also have a potential 5 green-white checkers to use as well. So what you have to probably take that into your fuel calculations as well. We'll get the green flag here, lap 33 of 70. We start now with Brandon Hawken, Tristan Hagenstein, your top 2. And as you can see, they are not sorting it out single file at all. 2 by 2 throughout the field.
And already Butler wants that race lead, already taking advantage of the momentum building up on that second line and ditching Hawken. As we expected, Butler wants to try and keep this race lead, and the difficult part is going to be seeing how the speeds now fare out for some of these drivers. If they elect to try and keep up the momentum, or if they try and go less than full throttle to be able to save the gas. It looks like right now they aren't really saving so far.
No, it doesn't look like they're saving, and even Butler wants to get this high side to work. You heard him mention it in his comments just a couple of moments ago. Guess what? You're going to use more fuel there on the top side. As I don't know if we'll see this third line stay up there. I feel like you want to get down and side draft that inside line, but as you see, we have a row of cars on the bottom. We have a row of cars on the top, and that's it. So surprised to see. I feel like if we're single file, you can definitely make the case that the top or the bottom can be a way to go. But if that was that high line, Justin, I'd want to take it to that inside line. I'd want to keep them down there, slow them down with that side draft, but we're not having that at the moment.
And the interesting thing we are having is, Blake, normally you talked about it earlier, where drivers are used to the tires not wearing all too often when it comes to super speedway racing. Drivers throughout the week had been burning up the right rear tires by at least a few percent. It's still a noteworthy amount, because it shows how some of these drivers have been really slipping and sliding when trying to work with one another. It's not going to play a major factor, yes, but it's still a noteworthy fact that has been popping up throughout the week, as Mike Fallon now leads the top line.
Well, Fallon will go to the top. Does that warrant a move from Brandon Hawken? It does. Hawken recognizes that energy is starting to form in the top side, and now everybody on the bottom scrambling. You see this in the real-life Cup races as well, when just about 5 or 6 cars get formed there on the top side. Everybody just starts scrambling. When can I get up there? Am I going to miss out? Am I going to be left to go to the back of the pack? As you see that high line starting to form, Kyle Riley is able to get it as well. But the leader of that inside line, that is a lonely feeling. John Poole and Jack Painter just falling through the pack, as you see very quickly. Everybody starting to migrate there to the top of the racetrack.
Hardcastle and Naraki, as well as Cosman, also in those grouping of drivers trying to utilize the bottom line. And looks like Talladega BR is definitely coming in. Of course, a reference to the predecessors to iRacing in terms of some of the community tracks that could come into play because of that side force that can come up from the top line. And this is similar to when we came here the last time at Talladega, in fact, Blake, if I remember correctly, because several times the top line came into play for several laps.
It did, and of course you think back to the Daytona 500 this year, this is largely what that race looked like. So we've seen it form on the top, we've seen it form on the bottom like it did in the eNASCAR Pro Invitational Series. Whichever way you want to go, this is how they have found it to sort it out. But we have a spinner in the back, Ryan Naraki, Justin Malillo around, and that is a 2-car tandem gone wrong as Naraki gets spun around. Another tough hit for the 84 of Cosman Ionescu, one of our championship championship contenders, it has not been a clean night for the 84 as the caution flag is out once again. And while we thought we had kind of formed things up and we may see some single file for a little bit, this has brought an abrupt halt to that.
And this takes the fuel strategy out of the equation, it looks like. Just a badly mistimed bump from Cosman coming out of the tri-oval. Wasn't lined up square. Collects Miller at the very tail end of the incident. Remember, it already used a fast repair under green as well. So just that bad timing rather of the bump to the left part of the back bumper is enough to send the 37 sliding and damages one of our championship contenders.
Some more damage for Cosman Ionescu. It was really just a couple of cars there that get involved in that caution. Some more scramble away and won't have to face anything. One driver of note also fell out or has taken his car to the garage. It was the 71 of Warren Rosario. He's scored 24 laps down, so we have 19 at the moment on the lead lap and are still making circuits around here. Of course, Ethan Quarter, Isaac Johnson did not make their way out to the grid, and they haven't pulled out onto the racetrack yet, so imagine that those cars, we likely will not see them in this race. But as we continue to work along, we are past the halfway point of the finale of the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it's on Fridays, and the running of the Speed Incorporated 300. We go through pit stops, and we'll let you take a look at them as we go side by side. You won't miss a minute of it.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics and engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12-Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Back with you live from the Talladega Super Speedway here on STN as we look on for the season finale here of the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League presented by STN. 5 drivers electing to go for a championship tonight, but very soon we will see here at FTF on Friday nights the running of FTF 1, a Formula One league that is going to be running with the new iRacing Dallara IR01 series. And Justin, I'm planning to drive on that. I've taken that car. I took it around Monza this past week. I was not very fast, but I really enjoyed driving that car, so I'm looking forward to that. That should be a pretty fun time. Saw a couple of tracks they have here. It'll be a good time, and that's some of the things that they're trying to do here on FTF on Friday nights with the running of this series, and of course trying to branch out and do something a little bit different. But that car is it's a nice car to go out, and it's really wide, big tires, a lot of draft. It's a pretty good time.
It's also a very difficult car to drive, though, you have to think, because you're carrying a ton of speed. That car takes a lot of talent to be able to drive as well around the circuit. So I'm curious to see how you fare out in that one, especially with the difficulty around the corners to make sure you don't snap it around.
And breaking news, that series, as I'm hearing it in my ear, will be on STN these upcoming Friday nights. So eventually we'll get a schedule put out to you. I've seen some preliminary things, know that Monza's on the schedule. I think we even have an oval race upcoming in that car. So it'll be interesting, that's for sure. And again, that car, a lot of power, really wide, huge tires, different compounds, everything. I know the couple of laps I've taken in that car, you don't want to follow me because you'll probably be in front, but it is a fun car to drive. I've driven it around Barcelona a little bit this week, Monza last week. It's a good time. So looking forward to running that with a good friend of mine. FTF 1 coming soon on Friday nights near you. But before we do that, we still have a champion to crown in this series. And up front, Sean Butler trying to do it, as well as Tristan Hagenstein back there in row number 2. A couple of cars with damage throughout the pack, but we'll try to get through to the end as we'll restart here with 30 laps to go. As you mentioned, likely pretty good on fuel mileage if we go green to the end, but again, the potential of 5 green-white checkers looms large over these drivers on whether they would be able to make it on fuel if we somehow got that many attempts. So pace car will once again pull onto pit road, and Sean Butler in control of the field, or rather Brandon Hawken has elected to take the outside line on this restart. So an interesting call there for Brandon Hawken, and Butler responding to it. He's going to try to pin that 97 on the wall, use that side draft on the launch to try and get a run. So we'll see here when they decide to go. Butler ahead by just a nose, but I don't think this is going to be a call that Brandon Hawken's going to make again. Butler will just move up and side draft the 97 as they work into the corners. There you see Butler side draft, duck to the bottom, and that was not a very successful restart for the TWB Chevrolet.
What a great side draft, though. Perfectly executed on showing how you normally do it in real life as well, though, Blake. Butler did it right. Go up to the top, side draft the quarter panel, move on down and get away to try and prevent the side draft back. And now it's about trying to play the lanes.
It is, and Butler trying to play up to the outside lane, but the momentum is with the bottom at the moment. Mike Fallon goes to the lead. He'll follow Kyle Riley to the top, and Fallon is around as they spin on the apron. A couple cars scatter. Tristan Hagenstein is involved as well. He's on the apron, but he saves it. It looks like everything is off the racing surface, so we stay green. Mike Fallon out of shape. John Poole, heavy damage to his machine, but we continue on here, and another instance of blocking gone awry at the front of the field.
And that has major championship implications because Hagenstein has talked about all the way back in 15th, has already lost the draft. That's going to really hurt his chances here unless he gets a caution flag. He also has damage now on the front end of his machine, and he's got no help at all. So this is absolutely huge for the championship complexion as more cars are wrecking in the corner.
One car is around. Again, he is on the grass. It is Michael Frisch. Another bump draft where we've seen a car get loose and out of shape. We talked about pre-race, Justin Prince. Kyle Riley saying, we felt as though the two-car tandem was more stable than it has been. You know, we can go out here and you feel like if you're the front car, you're not getting as out of shape as earlier. I don't know if I believe that any longer because nearly every wreck we have seen has been two cars trying to do that tandem, and the car in front just gets so out of shape that they can't control it.
You have to wonder if it comes down in part to the track temp in one part, because when they were in practice, they had a track temperature of 94 degrees. Earlier on the race, it was the low 100s. It's 110 right now. It is blistering hot. It's 83 degrees as well, the air temp. It's extremely hot, and the winds as well, which made it surprising, in my opinion, too, Blake, was that normally the winds, when they're gusting the way they are towards the east, where it's currently essentially to the side of the cars to where it makes it very turbulent in the corners, normally you don't necessarily talk about stability and wind being that way in the same sentence. Both of those things I think are starting to play major factors here, especially more so the track temp.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It warmed up a lot. Again, mind you, our practice session was in the morning here in sim time, so it was much cooler. The sun wasn't out on the racetrack as long, and then we fast forward now, we're roughly at 3 p.m. local time in the sim, so much hotter. And of course, it's April 23rd in Talladega, Alabama, so it's not exactly going to be as frigid as it would have been in perhaps early spring or late in the fall like we would see at Talladega Super Speedway. So the temperature has climbed, and I think that has had a drastic effect on the stability of cars to be able to handle that two-car tandem. But the ending result of that scatter, no caution flag, but we have 9 cars here who have caught up to the front of the field. Ryan Naraki, the 10th car in line, just trying to hang on. And again, several cars, including championship contenders Adam Martin and Tristan Hagenstein, losing the draft.
He has found some help, is the bright side for Hagenstein, but he's running a couple tenths slower than the rest of the cars in front of him. That's absolutely going to hurt. Adam Martin also is in trouble a little bit here. He's losing tons of time with significant damage to both the front and back end. So at the very least, a couple of your championship contenders are hoping for a bit of trouble to get back in the swing of things. Everybody else, though, is electing to go single file on the bottom line. And Mike Mcconville is currently in the driver's seat for the championship, I think, possibly.
I was about to say the driver of the Wawa Chevrolet up front in terms of the championship. He runs in the second position. He's pushing Brandon Hawken, who, again, didn't get a great launch on that restart, but has been able to retain the race lead. But they have such a huge lead. I don't even think battling is going to really affect them as they go double wide behind the front three. Lucas Plosel will pull to the inside. He'll lose a couple of spots there as they go 3 wide with Plosel. They're running on the apron below the yellow line. Again, this is a rule here that we will see in effect. There is no yellow line rule in this series. So, of course, anything down there, making a pass or going down there on the backstretch or in the tri-oval is fair game. So that is something we may see later on in this race. They've sorted out single file now behind our front three. Butler now leading, I guess, that second pack, as you will call it, that is starting to chase back down your front 3 cars once again.
Good momentum being built up here, and the reason Butler's being so aggressive here is I think he was listening, and 1, and 2, for the serious reason, he needs to be able to be up at the front to control his own destiny. Because in the points, it's important to be able to get track position, it's important to lead laps, it's important to get the fastest lap, and right now he wants that race lead and bad to be able to control his own destiny, I think, at this point, to be able to get up to the point.
Well, again, it just depends on, does he have the help? The answer to that seems to be a resounding yes, as you see Mike Mcconville respond to that. Butler doesn't care. He's going to go to the top side 3 wide. He goes beneath the lap car. That's John Poole, as that was nearly a hairy moment there, but Hawken recognizes it. He'll pull to the high side now as Butler tries to break the side draft of Mike Mcconville. He's not able to do it, but Mcconville, no help there on the bottom. He'll drift back a couple of spots. Is now Butler the lead car in the championship, and here comes Butler to the inside trying to get to Brandon Hawken. Perfect side draft execution right there. Butler to the lead.
Yeah, that was very hairy when it came to that traffic management. I haven't seen at Talladega a lap car being used like a pick in that fashion here, because it's so dangerous with the speed you're carrying compared to the slower driver. It caused an absolutely hairy moment. Butler lucky at this point to be able to be still going, but the tandem's starting to come in as well. Keep in mind, only 2 drivers have no incident points so far in this race. That's how dicey it's been. Brandon Hawken, Jeremy Clapper.
Well, speaking of it being dicey, Clint Roberts hit the outside wall off of turn 4 that last time. So Clint Roberts loses a little bit of ground, and he will fall off the lead pack. So that pack that was 9 at the front, it's now to 8, is a big move here by Kyle Riley onto the yellow line. Riley was a bit out of shape, got a little loose there as he was pushing Sean Butler. Again, another leader of a 2-car tandem that we've seen get out of shape. It causes Riley to go beneath, and now we have a caution on the speedway. One spinner here. It is Kyle Short in the middle of 3 and 4.
And he hit the wall coming out into turn 3, it looks like, in that second pack that was starting to form up there. And we talked about it. If you make a mistake on the top line where you end up plowing up, if you end up not turning enough, if you end up making any sort of mistake while trying to run the top, it can cause trouble. And it did for Kyle Short. He basically bounced off the wall right across Ryan Naroki's nose.
He did, and this wasn't a case of the car behind him getting him loose. He just ran up into the fence and just very quickly, nowhere to go there for Ryan Naroki. Relatively harmless spin there for Short. He gets a little bit of left rear damage in the contact with the 37, but otherwise nobody comes back up and takes the 51 and hits him. You see right there, close call for Justin Melillo, who, mind you, already has used one fast repair, so he did not need to be in that. He avoids that accident. And with 21 laps to go in the season schedule distance, we are once again under yellow.
This caution flag is going to help those drivers we were talking about who needed one, like Tristan Hagenstein, like Kosman, like Adam Martin, I believe, among those drivers who needed this to be able to group back up. This is all going to really help them at this point, to say the very least, to be able to get back in the lead pack. It's the matter, though, of how they fare now with the damage they've picked up in the past couple of incidents. Keep in mind, Hagenstein's been one of the dominant drivers. Adam Martin as well has been noteworthy, though, throughout this campaign. Coming into tonight, just led 2 laps the whole season, but has been consistent throughout to be able to make the top 5 with almost no bonus points.
It's a tough thing to do, but again, in these races, it's all about just putting yourself in the right position and perhaps at the right time. As you see a number of drivers elect to come onto pit road. Hagenstein, we'll see what he elects to do with the damage that is on his race car, and it's really about the back half of the field that elect to come down pit road, and many of them already having used their fast repair will just try to repair as much damage as possible to get themselves back out there. The one thing even I've noticed and experienced this, Justin, is that in the past it seemed as though you got a little bit of damage, particularly engine damage, and you just didn't have any prayer of keeping up in the pack. With this package, you got a little bit of a fighting chance. If you have some help behind you, you can certainly keep up and at least stay a part of that lead pack. You become the last car in line, though. That's a little bit of a different story, but it seems like with this, and I mean, we've seen it in real life, too. I mean, think of Eric Jones winning the Busch Clash last year on the oval and in a car that looked like it was ready to go to the junkyard. So I think with a little bit of damage now, you're not quite as hurt if you have a little bit of help to go along with you.
Absolutely. And I've seen several times, in fact, several drivers lead some laps with damage. So it's going to be where, as long as they have that help, I think they're in a good spot. Absolutely. But if they don't have that help, then they're going to be basically in a scramble situation where you're going to be basically forced to make aggressive moves and risk getting more damage. So one of the drivers I'm curious about that, for example, is Mcconville, for example, with that front valence and splitter rather crushed in right around the grill, how that's going to factor in and affect his ability to be the lead car if he gets to that point. Moments like that are going to be very important.
They are, and you know, the one thing I think that's not as much of a concern with this style of racing is the temperatures. We used to talk about it all the time, that you were always having to manage the temperature of your grill, keeping the oil temp down, the water temperature at a safe range. Really, outside of a tandem, you don't really have to manage your temps as much anymore. It's much more of a case of, you know, you could throw, of course, this is fixed setup, so these drivers don't have the opportunity to do it. But I know you said you ran some A-Open this week. I wonder, are you running a little more tape than you would typically run because of the fact that it's just so hard to get up to that car that's in front of you?
I've actually, in some circumstances, Blake, ran a little bit less, but I think I could run definitely more than what I've honestly been running when seeing some of how the racing is fared, because in the open side of things, there's that bubble that makes it difficult to get to the very back bumper at the back end. It leaves essentially a quarter of a car length of distance. So it just requires to have a really, really good car to be able to fully fill that gap and be able to push in front. So in other words, I think we'll see a lot of drivers in the open side now in the future, especially, be more aggressive in terms of their tape usage to try and fill those gaps. Absolutely agree with you.
Because again, really the only thing that will make you really have to worry about potentially overheating is if you tandem, and especially in the open series, you have drivers who have faster cars than what you would see here in the fixed series. So you'd imagine that air bubble would be a little bit harder to break in that style of racing. So you see the field summary right there. 4 caution flags. We've only been slowed by 4 of them. We've had 14 lead changes, and you see right there, lap 51 of 70 complete as we'll come to the restart here. Lights are out on the virtual pace car, and we will have 18 scheduled, that is, laps to go in the season. You can see on the ticker above all the championship contenders highlighted in STN blue. You see a couple there at the back of the field in Martin and Ian Eshu, but a couple at the front as well in Sean Butler and Mike Mcconville, as the pace car will pull off to the safety of pit road in just a couple of moments. And Justin, we haven't seen a very early restart. Perhaps somebody putting that in their back pocket for later, because you have really, once the pace car ducks off the pit road now, you can go anywhere if you're Sean Butler, the control car, and he will have that control as we work into the tri-oval. 18 laps to go when we get to Barney the flag man, who's had a busy week here at Talladega. And it looks like Butler going to wait until Barney throws the green flag to go, and that's exactly what he'll do. Green flag is back out. 18 to go here from Talladega. Butler and Hawkins side by side for the race lead.
And the interesting thing when it comes to what you just said, too, is it was utilized, in fact, in the eNASCAR Pro Invitational Series side by both Davison and Garrett Smithley to well execution to be able to control the front of the field. But looks like that middle line got a bit better off so far. Already scraping the wall, that was Mcconville.
Oh, one car flying in the back of the field. The 51 machine barreling off below the apron. He was off the racing surface for sure. He was about 80 feet above it as Short, and it looked like Jeremy Clapper got together there. Short goes along for a ride, but we still run under green with Butler at the front of the field.
Well, that seems to be a Kyle Short thing to happen to, unfortunately. But when it comes to the race lead itself, though, look at all these drivers trying to cut their way to the front. None of them are utilizing what we've seen earlier when things were a bit more calmer, other than the front couple. They're all trying to make their way to the front, and this is going to be the tough part, is getting enough cars to gather enough energy and work together. It looks like some of the drivers want to get back to the top, in fact, seeing Butler want to control it like Talladega BR again.
And, you see Mcconville, he's trying to go down there to try. Yes, Mike Mcconville trying to make that move on the inside, but you see that he may pay the price. As he falls back, he has no help, and that move is going to lose him about 4 spots. No, maybe more. You see the 62, the 55, everyone go on by. And Justin, this really makes you appreciate, sometimes what we see here at Talladega Superspeedway in real life, where everybody, you see that line start to form on the top, and it's just a train that never ends. This is why nobody gets out of line. You see Mike Mcconville, he was up there in about the 3rd position. Now he's back here in 10th, and you imagine if we had a 30 or 40 car field, it'd be much worse, but you have to have a number of cars go to the inside. That's what we've seen. Butler trying to defend for the race lead as Brandon Hawken has drafting help from Kyle Riley and Mike Fallon on the bottom of the racetrack.
Butler does have a little bit of help possibly coming to help out a little bit, but it's a championship contender in Cosman. So that's something to think about here, as Butler's trying hard to pull back these cars on the inside. Just can't get close enough, though, to fully side draft them and keep the momentum up to gather things up, as here comes Cosman for the bump.
You see right there is the bump. You see the car swaying. That is Butler getting out of control as soon as he got to the back of Cosman. And now Riley will throw the ball on Butler. Butler shuffled into the 3rd line. He's got no help. He's going to have to side draft this middle line so hard. You see how much that slows down Riley. Cosman looked to go 4 wide for a moment, but Butler hung out to dry. He's got no help there on the high side, and there's nothing he can do than re-rack him and try him again. Contact in front of them. Kyle Riley and Tristan Hagenstein nearly turned each other in the middle of the back straightaway, and just as quickly as that, Kyle Riley gets hung out to dry there in the middle of the racetrack.
Meanwhile, as this is all going on, guess who's up at the front again? Michael Frisch. He always seems to find his way at the very tail end of these races, Blake, with a clean race car for the most part, in contention for the race lead after riding in the middle to back of the pack for much of the race. It's going to be interesting how he fares out here. Look at this, it's Adam Martin going for the lead.
And Martin going for the lead. He is a championship contender. He's going to make it happen on the bottom. Just 2 cars now left up top until Butler gets to the back of Michael Frisch. But here comes Adam Martin, drafting help from Hawken. Hawken pokes high. We don't want to see another instance of a 2-car tandem gone awry. So Martin just not able to hook it up there on the bottom. They lose the momentum. And now here comes Mike Fallon on the top of the racetrack. Plenty of drafting help in the high line. We've just seen this time and time again, Justin. It's to the bottom, then you want to be in the middle. Now we're to the top. You're always chasing a line here, and right now it's the top.
Yeah, the question is how long does it stay the top as Michael Frisch hits the safer barrier and crushes in his right front. Now it switches back to the bottom because of that. And it comes down to those types of mistakes that really swings the momentum that quickly.
And Butler recognized it, not only that Frisch hit the wall, but that if he did, Mike Fallon would not have help. So he goes to the bottom of the racetrack, takes advantage of that very quickly, as now he is in control of this race. And we've seen it time and time again. I feel like Butler really wants to get the high line to work. He feels like it's the most effective way to keep that lead, but also he will adapt to wherever that car that is closest behind him runs to, as now you'll see him move forward. Now he blocks low. He'll really throw a hard block here on Andrew Hardcastle as he tries to keep the lead, and now Hardcastle going to pay the price as he gets side drafted from Seth Noel on the bottom. Seth Noel to the outside. Butler keeps the race lead.
And now Seth Noel, I think, is committed to helping Butler at this point. It's just a matter of, can they keep it up? And that's the tough part, because the answer is looking more and more no. But at the very moment, for the championship's perspective, outside of Mike Mcconville, no one else is inside the top 8 other than Butler. So Butler's in a great position here, and I believe he's led just about at least a quarter of this race with how he's been playing this strategy.
And Butler now, you can see with 11 laps to go, 12 laps to go, 11 as we cross the stripe. Butler is going to do everything he can to keep this race lead. He is going to throw all the blocks that are necessary. As you see, he's going to have to fend 3 lanes off now, as here comes Brandon Hawken up the middle of the racetrack. He's able to form up. Butler throws the block on him. He'll lead that bottom line into turn 1. Seth Noel, now he may be in the sucker hole as Mike Fallon pokes to his outside, and there you see it. He'll throw the block on Fallon as Noel trying to hold his track position. But the one thing with Butler, this is the one thing you got to look at. You cannot get too far out front as you see them snaking down the back straightaway. Butler, huge block on Hawken. He puts Hawken in the fence and gets back to the bottom to block Adam Martin, or Mike Mcconville, rather.
And now going to be happy there is going to be Hawken. But look at this. Mike Mcconville got to the inside. He's up to the race lead.
And Seth Noel spinning to the bottom of the racetrack. It's off the racing surface. We stay green, and Butler still able to control the race lead. Noel in second, but man, almost Mike Mcconville and Tristan Hagenstein over the radio not very happy.
Yeah, Hagenstein's definitely not going to be happy, because that may be his championship right there as a result after being so dominant all season long. It's contact near Rocky that shuffles him out, but with about 10 laps to go, coming up to 9 to go, we're still spinning.
Still spinning here to the inside. That is Kyle Riley in the 62, again off the racing surface. We use iRacing cautions, and now another one is around Seth Noel here in the middle of 3 and 4. Still no caution. Again, we're using iRacing cautions. Noel was about 90 degrees sideways. He saved it, so we stay under green. My goodness, what an eventful turn of events here at Talladega as we reach 9 to go. It is Butler, Frisch, Melillo now your top 3. 4 cars now single file in the front of the field. They're 3 wide behind them. They're losing ground.
And just about everybody inside the top 8 has damage. The first driver without damage is Ryan Aronki. That's how much they're bumping each other and how hard the contact's been. But now, can Mike Mcconville get enough help in 5th position to be able to reel back in the top 4 is going to be the biggest question, because they're working together very well up front. They're not working together where Mcconville is.
No, they're not. They are side by side, which is going to slow down that line. And now Michael Frisch isn't going to help matters. Butler going everywhere to block the 58. He goes low, he goes high. Here comes Frisch. He's going to side draft them, and this is exactly what Butler does not want to see. He does get a little bit of drafting help from Melillo, so Frisch trying to make something happen, but that lost this front group a ton of ground. And again, that second group, 2 championship contenders in it. As you see there for a moment, Tristan Hagenstein making his way off of pit road. He had to use the fast repair, and he is going to go a lap down. So tough break for Hagenstein, who led the points coming into tonight, a championship contender. And obviously he was audibly frustrated after that latest accident happened.
Yeah, I would be too after being one of the dominant cars, but it's the matter of hoping for a bit of luck now if he wants a shot at this title. But it's not over up at the front, because the groups have combined again with 7 to go this time by, and Mcconville wants to go.
Mcconville does. He has nothing to lose, and you see Butler there about a car length and a half ahead of Justin Melillo. That's going to give the 53 a huge run at him. Will he take it, or will he just get to the back of Sean Butler? Melillo to the back of Butler, and he's not going to go anywhere with it. That air bubble will shove the Pennzoil Ford further forward as they work down the back straightaway here. Just about 6.5 laps to go in the season. And Butler now leading a line that is single file for about the top 5. They are still doing battle behind them. It is Mike Mcconville trying to make anything happen, but right now it is just not forming up for the 24.
Keep in mind, Butler has led laps in every race he's made this season. Was the pole sitter last week, has been looking for a race victory. He's been close a couple times throughout this campaign. That's the closest he's been overall, though, Blake, because he's played this race very well and has been, well, executing both the side draft and the aero bubble to be the Pied Piper. The matter is going to be, can he keep it up now for a few more laps? Because I think at this point, it's the calm before the storm. Everyone's resetting here before those big bursts of speed on the final lap.
Well, again, everybody having to communicate, because right now we're single filed. You're going to need a group to do it, and right now Mcconville only has a couple of cars behind him who all have their own agendas. You see he's going to try to pull up right here to Frisch. They make contact, so that is some aggressive side drafting, to say the least. As Mcconville moves up now, he'll try to do the same to Ryan Naraki, and he gets to the quarter panel of Ryan Naraki, pulls the 37 back. So Mcconville here, desperation mode has set in with 5 laps to go. He's got to try anything to get up to the race lead, but unfortunately that top 4 that is formed up, he's making up ground on Naraki, but he's also losing time to the leaders as he goes and tries to battle these cars.
He needs Hardcastle to push him, I think, at this point. That's the one thing that's really hurting that momentum on the second line. And the problem is, no one wants to be able to work with them at this point. There's a bit of contact, in fact. Mcconville's realized that it wasn't working. Cut in behind Ryan Naraki.
And now Mcconville cuts back down. Again, he has no help behind him, no help coming. Now Hardcastle may have a little bit of a run, but if you're Mcconville, you need someone behind you before you go to the high side to try and make that move work. Meanwhile, up front, Sean Butler sitting pretty. 4 laps to go in the season, and Butler in control of the race and in control of the championship.
And the interesting thing is going to be, will someone like Melillo or Jack Painter try and ditch him on the final laps here to try and take home victory? I know Melillo has been hungry for winning a race here on iRacing in FTF competition, and he's been someone that has been up and down the running order several times over, from incidents, from being near a lap down from a fast repair. Now has a shot to try and take this checker flag, but with 3 to go this time, no one's really making a move quite yet. It might take a couple laps here.
It might, and you mentioned Melillo, who is so hungry for a race win. Anytime you come out to FTF and you come to Talladega and Daytona, you know that 53 at some point is going to be a factor, and it's likely going to be late in the going. And this is exactly the spot that he wants to be in. 3 laps to go off of turn 2. It is still Butler. Nobody mounting a charge at him just yet. That second line starting to form with Mcconville, but again, it separates and evaporates right there. Not a whole lot being done as here comes the move to the outside. Jack Painter goes to second. Butler will go high to block, and Melillo now teaming up with his Speed Inc. Incorporated teammate in Ryan Naraki. Butler goes low to block the run from the 18.
Really getting slippery for some of these drivers now coming to the 2 to go signal again. If they take the white flag, the race is official. Mike Fallon, though, you have to give him credit, has had a well-done race. Big push from Mcconville, big block from Butler.
Block from Butler. Here it comes Mcconville, and he'll turn Butler into the fence. Goes Mcconville end over end, and that may be the championship for both of those drivers. Mike Mcconville into the fence. Butler is around with damage on his Pennzoil Ford. The caution is out on lap 69, and we will go to a green-white checkered to decide this title.
Wow. And for Sean Butler, he's going to be definitely reeling after that one. Had to block 3 lanes at once, and that's just very difficult to do here, Blake. It basically became 4 wide, if not 3.5 wide in that situation. But when you're fighting for a championship, you've got to do everything you can, and he tried to do everything he can. Try to block the run coming from the top. Try to block Mcconville in the middle. Just couldn't block all the lanes at once.
No, he couldn't. And again, Mcconville was doing everything he could to try and push anybody to try and get up there and mount a challenge at Butler. He pushes Fallon up there. Fallon goes high. The 24 elects to try and go low. And as you mentioned, Butler just trying to play so many lanes there. And eventually, I think, was just a little too slow to try to get to the middle there. Mcconville goes over, no doubt destroys his 24 car. Not sure if he has a fast repair left, but I think my calculations would say no. Butler obviously has used the fast repair. He's got damage, but it's not terminal. And then, of course, Adam Martin, he was the championship contender who kind of saw that all from the back of that front pack. He got a little bit of damage in it, but again, it's not terminal. So Adam Martin may have an opportunity here to try and win this championship. But all of our championship contenders, they're either damaged or a lap down. Tristan Hagenstein, I think he's in the best position, and he's the lucky dog as he'll get waved around, and he has the cleanest race car of all 5 of them.
I was about to say, yeah, he's in the best position possible here, and I'm not sure how this all going to fare out. Adam Martin, you can't count him out, though, is going to have the track position. He's among the drivers who just elect to stay out as Tristan Hagenstein hits somebody under caution, catching up for the lucky dog. I believe he tapped Hardcastle and damaged his left rear a touch.
Yeah, that was Hardcastle and Hagenstein who kind of just came together right there. A really strange situation to happen here under caution. So we were just talking about how Hagenstein had a car that wasn't damaged. Well, you can scratch that off. He has just a slight bit of damage there on the left rear quarter panel of his race car. So I don't think that has any effect on him losing the lucky dog.
I think it does. It does. Because he had an incident, that counts as him losing the lucky dog to Jeremy Clapper. It counts him as involved, I think, in the caution flag. This is absolutely huge for Hagenstein, as I think they will give him the wave, but that could have been even bigger.
Well, it could have been, and, you know, race control is going to step in. They're going to wave Hagenstein around the pace car. They don't want another driver driving into the side of him to be the factor in deciding this championship. So they are still going to wave Hagenstein around the pace car, which, you know, I support that move. We get another look at the replay here. Yeah, I'd say that was a lot more of the 22 coming up than Hagenstein just being an innocent bystander. So, good that they're waving him around the pace car here as the lights are still on. as we work through the corners, but this has completely shuffled up this race. So Ryan Naraki, Andrew Hardcastle will restart on the front row. Adam Martin, damaged championship contender Adam Martin, will restart to the inside of row number 2. And then you have to go all the way back to Cosmin Ionescu, damaged and in the 11th position, who is the next championship contender who is restarting back there. Hagenstein gets waved around the pace car as the lucky dog, and you have to think Butler and Mcconville getting all the repairs possible to just throw a prayer at this thing. A lot happening here late in the going.
Honestly, I'm not sure how this is going to all fare out at this rate, because Adam Martin, remember, did lead a lap before. Cosmin, I don't think, has quite yet in this race. But Hagenstein's going to have, well, one of the cleanest cars in the race in terms of your championship contenders. So in our words, this may go either way for the title. For the race win itself, though, I'm not sure how this is going to fare either, because Naraki, not sure if he has too much help. Mike Fallon's been aggressive. Andrew Hardcastle, we haven't talked much about him all race, has been quietly running in the back much of the race. And then you have drivers like Brendan Hawken and Jack Painter, who came down and ended up getting some clean race cars that are going to be very quick. This could go either way for both the championship and the race itself.
A lot to be decided, an entire season on the line, as we will come to the restart here when we get back to the front straightaway and take what could be the first of a potential 5 green-white checkered attempts. So the way this will work is if we get a caution on the first lap of the restart, obviously we will have to re-rack it. The caution flag will be thrown, and we'll start attempt number 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. If you remember all the way back at Pocono when we were running the Riley DPs, we used all 5 green-white checkered attempts in that race. So it is not something that is unseen in this series to use all 5. If we get to the white flag before the caution would come out, well, guess what? We're not going to get the caution flag. We will race it back through to the end. So, oh boy, a lot left to be decided here. The finale of the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League acceptance on Friday, presented by STN, all to be decided by a green-white checkered. Ryan Naraki on the inside. To the outside is Andrew Hardcastle. So we got a battle for the race win and a battle for the championship. Adam Martin well ahead of your championship competitors, but we don't know how much damage that Gatorade Chevrolet has, as well as Cosmin Ionescu, Tristan Hagenstein with a clean race car, Butler and Mcconville heavy damage. What happens to them? All to be decided here in just a couple of moments. Pace car is off. Green-white checkered number 1. Coming to you in just a couple of moments as the Bobcat Ford has control of this one. Going to be a late restart here from Ryan Naraki as Barney the flagman waves the green flag, and 2 laps left to decide it all.
And the bottom line didn't form up at all on that start. The top line did somewhat, but Mike Fallon just ditched it. That's going to leave Hardcastle out to dry.
And I'll tell you what, Naraki has a huge lead. That may not be what he wants to see, as Adam Martin looks like he is surging there in that Gatorade machine. Big help from Mike Fallon. They'll pull up to the back of the 37. Hardcastle into the fence as Fallon ends up saving it. They scatter. They'll end up continuing to go on, but Martin has lost all his help, but he may be okay to ride around here as they work through 3 and 4.
And some of the championship contenders trying to take a 3 wide as well to get up to Adam Martin. It looks like this is going to be extremely difficult for some of these drivers to do cleanly, though, as major blocks coming about for several drivers coming to the white.
Well, the one driver that looks like he has a little bit of a surge going on right now, Cosmin Ionescu. Martin is in the middle. He's going to get hung out to dry. White flag is in the air. The leading championship car now moves to the 84. In the middle of the pack, Brandon Hawken goes low to lead Naraki. Cosmin in the middle, as now he's into Clint Roberts. They make contact. Here comes Hagenstein. They'll make it 4 wide, and Cosmin in the 27th side by side for the championship.
What a burst from Hagenstein. Now, can Hagenstein keep up the momentum for the final half of the lap is the big question. He's going to have to block with all his championship contenders right behind him.
He's going to have to block as well. Doesn't get a lot of side draft in the 53, but doesn't have a lot of help out front. It looks like Hawken is leading. Here comes to the outside. John Poole looking for a win. Ryan Naraki to the bottom. Brandon Hawkins side by side. Here comes John Poole for the win, and it looks like behind them Tristan Hagenstein gonna hang on. He is your top finishing championship contender, and by all calculations, Tristan Hagenstein is gonna be your champion of the FTF Super Speedway Series.
What a race for Hagenstein, going from a lap down and being out of contention after a big incident to getting the lucky dog to being now the champion after being the most consistent driver throughout the season. What a race, and an adventurous one for Hagenstein, where he was one of the dominant cars early on.
He certainly was, and Hagenstein wins the championship. We have to give a nod to John Poole. Where did that 21 come from? Didn't talk about him much all afternoon after the race that he had getting caught up in a wreck early on. And John Poole III wins this race, and Tristan Hagenstein brings home the hardware after a dominant season in which he came into tonight as the points leader. It's been consistency, and there at the end when it mattered, Hagenstein got the caution that he needed, got the lucky dog, and somehow after all that, he ends up bringing home the championship after restarting at the tail end of the field with a brand new race car. So John Poole going to be burning it down here on the front straightaways. We take a look at the full results of this race. He wins the final edition of this series here at the Talladega Super Speedway. Brandon Hawken brings it home in second. Seth Noel finishes in third. Lucas Plosel fourth. Ryan Naraki led that last restart. He finishes with a top 5 tonight. Jack Painter in sixth. Tristan Hagenstein, a 7th place effort, is what wins him the championship. 8th to Justin Malillo. Jeremy Clapper 9th. And Adam Martin, who was so close there at the end, fell back to 10th.
11th spot goes to Andrew Hardcastle. Cosman Ionescu finishes in 12th position with Clint Roberts in 13th. Mike Fallon falls back to 14th after the late race incident, with Sean Butler, be contender all race long, finishes in 15th after the big one in turns 1 and 2 that triggered the GWC. Mike Mcconville 16th is the last car in the lead lap. Michael Frisch finishes 6 laps down in 17th. The rest of the drivers also did not finish. Kyle Riley, Kyle Short, Warren Rosario, those drivers made starts. Ethan Corder, Isaac Johnson did not start.
What a night to decide a champion, and what a race we saw. So many comers and goers throughout the night, and this is the one that at the end of it all, it seems to be the one that comes out on top. John Poole, where did that 21 come from is what I have to say.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I think I started 9th on that final restart and just slowly but surely picked my way through the traffic and made the moves when I needed to make the moves, and just got the help at the end to get across the line first.
And you definitely made the moves at the right time, but just talk about from your perspective kind of the difference in what this new package brings to you as a driver, what you're able to do, the moves you're able to make, how much you have to kind of think about. What was kind of your impression of everything tonight?
Definitely more difficult. This is honestly my first super speedway race since the FTF 500 in February. So with the introduction of the new package, it's definitely a lot more difficult to develop the run. Tandems are a lot more powerful than they were in the past. So yeah, it's just you definitely have to plan out your runs, plan what you're going to do, and you got to take every run that you have. It's not like in the past where you just had runs for days, but here, if you get a run, you got to take it. It's definitely a lot more aggressive style of racing than it was previously.
Well, is it fun?
It has its moments, I'd say. I'd say it has its moments. Definitely during the middle portion of the race, it's a little frustrating, but when it gets down to it at the end, when everybody's trying to take every move they can, it's definitely a lot more fun, for sure.
Well, John, I'll throw you the mic one more time. Final race of the season, you get to victory lane. Anybody want to give a shout out to?
Got to thank you guys for putting on the broadcast every single week. I haven't been able to show up to these SNSL races, unfortunately, due to school schedule, but I'm glad that I was able to show up for the finale. Got to thank FTF admin staff and all their sponsors for putting on great events every single week. It's always a pleasure, and I got to thank Cosman from Splash & Co Graphics for painting up my whip for tonight.
Always does a good job at Splash and Go. John, congratulations winning the final race of the season in the Speeding 300. Congratulations.
All right, thank you, guys.
And it's John Poole who takes down the win, but it is Tristan Hagenstein who, at the end of the day, they climbed the mountain. He is your champion. He is caught up with Justin Prince.
Tristan, right now, what's going through your mind? Because it was an adventurous race for you. At one point, you were a lap down after a big incident. Talk us through your thought process right now after coming away as the top finishing championship contender in this one.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm speechless right now. I didn't think we had a shot there. If it wasn't for that late caution to come out, you'd be talking to somebody else. And we got the caution and everything just fell into play there. And I don't know what to say. I'm just speechless right now.
First of all, let's talk about the race itself. How difficult was this race for you? Because you're one of the top contenders, and then of course trouble ensued. How difficult was this race for you tonight?
Yeah, I mean, everything was on the line, and Sean, as well as all the other championship contenders, raced me hard, raced me clean. Clean for the most part, that is. But when we were racing, it was a lot of fun. And then when we got caught up in what we got caught up in, it's that I thought that was going to seal the deal there. I thought we were all done. I thought, there's no climbing out of this one. It's going to be between the other four. But like I said, that late race caution came into our favor, heavily into our favor. And we somehow managed to win the championship. I can't believe it.
Well, what does it mean to be a champion FTF competition? Of course, securing a big-time win earlier on this campaign. Now you're the title champ. What does it mean to be a champion in FTF competition?
Yeah, the goal before the season start was just to get my first win in FTF competition, and we got that right away. I had no idea that I'd be in it in the long run and end up winning this championship. Like I've told you guys before, I've been with this league from almost the very beginning, back in the NR days, and to win a championship, it's a little surreal. I'm not gonna lie. Even if it is a Super Speedway Series league. I feel like people don't give enough credit to the super speedway drivers I guess you could say, because they say anybody can win these things, but it's a different story once you're actually on the track. And just to sum it up, though, this means a lot.
What do you want to thank for your championship campaign and through being a part of this season?
I got to thank the admins first and foremost for hosting this, Zach Johnson and everyone else that does everything behind the scenes. You guys for putting in the effort to showcase this league week in and week out. You guys always do a phenomenal job. I also got to thank and apologize first of all, because the boys on Discord that I was with at Cloud Empire Discord, I was screaming at them the whole entire last 10, 20 laps, and I just got to apologize to them, but I got to thank them at the same time. Chris Wetz, Michael Frisch, Gabe Herschel, Jonathan Taylor, Mark Sabeka, Brian Williams, Keith Sherman, Mike Fallon, Warren Rosario, Will Rogers, and Kyle Riley. I just got to thank those guys. And I'm sure I'm missing names, but just I can't believe it. We did it.
Congratulations once again, Tristan, on the championship.
Thank you so much, Justin.
Tristan Hagenstein, very happy to say the very least, Blake.
And I think we would expect him to be so. Anytime you can come out and win a title at FTF and join the long list of names of great sim racers that have accomplished that feat, you can't really say, obviously, I think the words speak for himself in terms of how Tristan Hagenstein is feeling right now. And, Justin, that'll kind of bring a wrap not only to this race, but this season. And, what a season it's been. A lot of side-by-side finishes, a lot of thrilling action, a little bit of drama. It's really had everything that we could ask for to offer.
Absolutely, especially with the different combinations of cars and tracks. It made for some interesting racing and for some unique styles of racing each time out. And it made it to where drivers had to be adaptable if they wanted to win the championship. It also made it where they needed to be consistent. And it's always very difficult to do that when it comes to super speedway racing because, well, it's a super speedway. So it can be very tricky when it comes to these types of races. But in the end, we've seen how dominant drivers were when it came to the speed and how consistent some of these drivers are. And that takes a lot of talent to do in the first place.
It certainly does. And man, what a season it's been. John Poole obviously gets the win tonight. Tristan Hagenstein, after dominating much of the season, so a very deserving champion tonight, he gets it done. And of course, we want to thank everybody over here, the administration at FTF, Zach Johnson, for all the effort that he puts in not only these broadcasts, but for this series as well. Everybody who has helped put this on, it's been a lot of fun to come out here on Friday nights and do this. And we will continue to race on Friday nights. It'll just be in a different form as very soon. Stay tuned. Join the FTF Discord or stay tuned otherwise to social media outlets as the FTF 1 is going to come in very soon, and that'll be a lot of fun as well, as we'll be running the Dallara IR01, the new fantasy car, I guess you can call it, as iRacing is made, but it definitely is a beast to drive, a lot of fun, and will create some exciting racing and some team and constructor drama, everything you'd come to expect out of FTF. So for everyone who puts this on, for Zach Johnson down in the virtual production trailer, and for Justin Prince, my broadcast partner, I'm Blake McCanless saying so long tonight from Talladega, where we bid farewell and congratulations to tonight's winner, and John Poole and Tristan Hagenstein, your FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it's on Friday, champion.